The elevator doors whispered open, revealing a plush hallway bathed in the muted glow of recessed lighting. Isabella, still clutching the room key card like a lifeline, stepped onto the thick carpet, its plushness silencing her worn ballet flats. The number on the card, 2307, shimmered under the faint light. This wasn't the modest accommodation she'd expected. Shen, her well-meaning but occasionally scatterbrained cousin, had promised a place to crash for the night, somewhere between a hostel and a budget hotel. This, however, screamed five-star luxury. Isabella's hand hesitated before the polished mahogany door. The air vibrated with a low hum of music emanating from within, a sophisticated blend of piano and strings that felt worlds away from the boisterous karaoke bars she frequented with her family. Doubt gnawed at her. Had she got the wrong room? She double-checked the number on the card against the brass plaque on the door. 2307. No mistake. Taking a deep breath, Isabella swiped the key card. The lock clicked open with a soft, almost reverent sound. She pushed the door inwards, expecting a cramped room with two twin beds and a flickering television. What she saw instead stole her breath. The suite was vast, bathed in the warm glow of strategically placed lamps that highlighted the rich textures of the room. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking panorama of the city, the twinkling lights resembling scattered diamonds on black velvet. The music, clearer now, filled the air with a sense of elegant calm. And standing by the window, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, was a man. He turned, his silhouette momentarily obscured by the light from the cityscape behind him. As he stepped forward, Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. He was impossibly handsome, with sharp, defined features, as that held a hint of both intelligence and amusement, and a presence that commanded attention without being overbearing. He wore a tailored suit that seemed to mold to his form, exuding an aura of quiet power and wealth. This wasn't the kind of man Isabella encountered in her daily life, a life filled with the clamor of her family's noodle stall and the relentless demands of her younger siblings. "You must be Isabella," he said, his voice a smooth baritone that resonated in the spacious room. He took a sip from his glass, his eyes never leaving hers. Isabella could only manage a small, breathless, "yes." He smiled, a genuine, disarming smile that reached his eyes. "I'm Nathan." He gestured towards a plush armchair near the window. "Please, come in. Shen told me to expect you." Isabella stepped into the room, her senses overwhelmed. The faint scent of sandalwood and leather hung in the air, a stark contrast to the familiar smells of soy sauce and chili that clung to her clothes. She felt acutely aware of her simple jeans and faded t-shirt, a world away from the understated elegance of her surroundings. "I think there's been a mistake," she stammered, clutching her worn canvas bag tighter. This isn't the room Shen booked for me," Nathan chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "No mistake at all. Shen called me earlier. He said you needed a place to stay." And while he spread his hands, gesturing to the opulent suite, "I happen to have a spare room." Isabella frowned, confusion clouding her features. But why would he? Nathan walked towards a small, elegantly appointed bar in the corner of the room. "Shen can be resourceful," he said with a wry smile. "He's been helping me with a project, and he mentioned you were in a bit of a bind. Consider this a small thank you for his hard work." He poured another drink, this time a sparkling liquid that fizzed invitingly. "Would you like something?" Isabella shook her head, still trying to process the situation. "I don't understand. I don't even know you." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "True, but Shen assures me you're trustworthy. And besides," he added, a twinkle in his eye, "he owes me a considerable favor." He extended the glass towards her. "Really, it's no trouble. Please." Hesitantly, Isabella took the glass. The cool crystal felt smooth against her palm. She took a small sip, the bubbles tickling her nose. It was unlike anything she'd ever tasted before, sweet and slightly tart, with a hint of something exotic she couldn't quite place. "So," Nathan said, leaning against the bar, his gaze steady on hers, "Shenmushin mentioned you're quite the culinary whiz. He tells me your family's noodle stall is legendary." Isabella blushed, a warmth spreading through her chest. "It's just a small stall," she mumbled, feeling suddenly self-conscious under his intense gaze. "Don't be so modest," Nathan countered, a hint of admiration in his voice. "Shenmushin raves about your cooking. He says your dumplings are the best he's ever had." A small smile tugged at Isabella's lips. "He exaggerates." "I doubt it," Nathan said softly, his eyes holding hers. "Perhaps you could cook for me sometime?" The unexpected invitation hung in the air, charged with a subtle energy that sent a shiver down Isabella's spine. This night, this encounter, was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was a world away from the familiar comfort of her family, a world of luxury and intrigue that both intimidated and fascinated her. And at the center of it all stood Nathan, a man who seemed to embody everything she wasn't, a man who, against all logic, had already begun to intrigue her. The fluorescent lights of the interrogation room buzzed, a stark contrast to the opulent chandeliers Isabella had grown accustomed to in Nathan's world. The metal chair was cold beneath her, the thin cushion offering little comfort against a rising tide of panic. Across the table, Mr. Henderson, the head of security, regarded her with an unnerving stillness. His eyes, usually jovial when he greeted her at the company entrance, were now narrowed, scrutinizing every flicker of emotion across her face. "Ms. Rossi," he began, his voice devoid of its usual warmth, "we have reason to believe you are involved in the recent data leak." Isabella's breath hitched. Data leak? This had to be a mistake. She'd been meticulous in her work, poring over spreadsheets and reports late into the night, fueled by a desperate desire to prove herself worthy of the opportunity Nathan had given her. This wasn't just a job. It was a lifeline, a chance to finally escape the suffocating weight of her family's debts. I don't understand," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I would never do anything to jeopardize this company." Henderson leaned forward, placing a folder on the table. Inside, printouts of emails, time-stamped and highlighted, seemed to scream her guilt. Except they weren't hers. The sender's address was similar, just one letter different from her own. A subtle but damning alteration. "These emails show confidential company information being sent to a competitor," Henderson said, his voice low and accusatory. "The account is registered in your name." Isabella's mind raced. She'd noticed odd activity on her computer a few times, fleeting glimpses of open documents she hadn't been working on, quickly disappearing when she approached. She'd dismissed them as glitches, exhaustion playing tricks on her eyes. Now, those dismissed warnings called at her, sharp reminders of her naivete. "I swear, I didn't send those," she pleaded, her eyes burning with tears. "Someone must have set me up." Henderson's expression remained impassive. "Until we can prove otherwise, you are suspended from your duties. We will be conducting a thorough investigation." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Suspended. All her hard work, the late nights, the sacrifices, all crumbling around her like a house of cards. She had finally glimpsed a life beyond the constant struggle, a life where she could provide for her family, where she could finally breathe. Now, it was slipping away. As security escorted her out of the building, Isabella felt the stares of her colleagues burning into her back. Whispers followed her like shadows, each word a sharp stab to her already wounded pride. The shame was a physical weight, crushing her beneath its immense pressure. She stumbled out into the bustling city streets, the vibrant energy a stark contrast to the hollowness that consumed her. The towering skyscrapers, once symbols of opportunity and hope, now seemed to mock her, reminders of how far she had fallen. She reached for her phone, desperate to hear Nathan's voice, to feel the reassurance of his presence. But what could she say? How could she explain something she didn't even understand? Doubt gnawed at her. Would he believe her? Or would he, like everyone else, condemn her based on circumstantial evidence? Their relationship was still new, fragile. This could shatter it completely. She remembered the warmth of his smile, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed, the gentle touch of his hand on hers. The memory brought a fresh wave of tears, hot and stinging against her cheeks. She had finally found something precious, something worth fighting for, and now it was all at risk. The city lights blurred as tears streamed down her face. She felt utterly alone, adrift in a sea of accusations and suspicion. The world she had so desperately tried to climb into, the world Nathan had opened for her, was now slamming its doors in her face. The weight of her family's expectations pressed down on her, a suffocating reminder of her responsibilities. Her younger brother's tuition, her mother's medical bills, the mounting debt that had shadowed her every step. It all depended on this job. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the noise, the stares, the crushing weight of despair. She had to fight. She had to find a way to clear her name, to prove her innocence, not just for herself, but for her family, for the future she had so desperately dreamed of, and, perhaps, for the chance to reclaim the fragile hope that had blossomed between her and Nathan. The sleek, glass doors of Novatech hissed open, swallowing Isabella into the cool, air-conditioned lobby. She clutched the worn strap of her messenger bag, the cheap fabric a stark contrast to the polished marble and chrome surrounding her. This was it. Her first day as an intern, her carefully constructed resume, omitting her family's crippling debt and her night job cleaning offices, had landed her this unlikely opportunity, a chance to climb out, to breathe. She just had to blend in, be invisible, a ghost among the pristine efficiency. The elevator hummed as it ascended, carrying Isabella further into a world she only glimpsed from the outside. Each floor a new level of intimidating sophistication. Her reflection in the mirrored walls showed a young woman in a borrowed blazer, 2 sizes too big, and shoes she polished to within an inch of their life. Beneath the carefully applied makeup, exhaustion lingered, a subtle shadow under her eyes. Stepping out onto the designated floor, she was greeted by a symphony of clicking keyboards and hushed phone calls. The open-plan office stretched out before her, a sea of sleek desks and focused faces. She felt acutely aware of her worn clothes, the slight tremble in her hands. This wasn't her world, not yet. Her supervisor, a brisk, efficient woman named Ms. Lee, gave her a cursory introduction and a stack of files almost taller than Isabella. Coffee runs, photocopying, filing. Don't bother, Mr. Hun, unless absolutely necessary. Isabella nodded, her throat tight. Mr. Hun, Nathan Hun, the enigmatic CEO she briefly encountered weeks earlier. The man who'd inadvertently spurred her to apply here. The man who represented everything she was striving for: success, stability, escape. She'd hoped to avoid any interaction, to remain unnoticed. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Days bled into weeks. Isabella threw herself into the mundane tasks, her efficiency surprising even Ms. Lee. She arrived early, left late, and absorbed everything like a sponge. The whispers started. The intern, the one who never stops. The ghost. It was a strange moniker. Fitting, she thought wryly, considering her efforts to remain unseen. One evening, as the city lights began to twinkle outside the panoramic windows, Isabella found herself alone in the office, catching up on filing. The silence was broken only by the hum of the air conditioning and the rhythmic tap of her fingers on the keyboard. Suddenly, The office door swung open, revealing Mr. Wong, the head of marketing, a man whose oily charm had always made her skin crawl. He sauntered towards her, a predatory glint in his eyes. "Working late, Isabella?" "Just finishing up, Mr. Wong," she replied, her voice betraying none of the unease churning in her stomach. He leaned against her desk, invading her personal space. Dedicated. "I admire that." His gaze lingered on her, making her acutely aware of her vulnerability. "You know, Isabella, hard work should be rewarded. There are opportunities here for someone like you, someone ambitious." The implication hung heavy in the air, thick and suffocating. Isabella forced a smile, her heart pounding against her ribs. "I appreciate that, Mr. Wong. I'm focused on learning as much as I can right now." He chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. "Learning is important, yes, but so is networking. Perhaps dinner, just the two of us. We could discuss your future." Isabella's stomach twisted. This was it. The kind of situation she dreaded. "The price of ambition," whispered about in hushed tones. She swallowed, her throat dry. "I have a prior engagement, Mr. Wong." His smile faltered, replaced by a thin-lipped expression of annoyance. "Is that so? A pity. Don't let this opportunity pass you by, Isabella. Not everyone gets a second chance." He straightened, his eyes cold. "Good night." He turned and left, leaving Isabella trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she blinked them back, refusing to give him the satisfaction. She grabbed her bag, her hands shaking, and fled the office, the oppressive silence echoing her own turbulent emotions. As she stepped onto the bustling street, the cool night air a welcome relief against her burning skin, she knew she couldn't stay silent. She couldn't let fear cripple her. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much. This was her chance, her escape, and she wouldn't let anyone, not even a powerful executive, take it away from her. She had to find a way to expose him, to protect herself and other vulnerable interns. That how? The question hung heavy in the air, as daunting as the towering skyscrapers surrounding her. A chilling reminder of the power she was up against. The air in Mr. Wang's office was thick with the cawing scent of lilac and the metallic tang of fear. Yen stood before the imposing mahogany desk, her reflection shimmering faintly in its polished surface, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning within her. The opulent office, with its panoramic city view, suddenly felt like a gilded cage. She clutched her project folder, the embossed company logo mocking her precarious position. Just hours ago, she had been riding high, the thrill of her successful presentation still buzzing in her veins. She'd finally felt seen, acknowledged, not just as the tireless office drone, but as Yun, the capable, innovative strategist. Her revised marketing plan for the Asian expansion, the one she poured weeks of sleepless nights into, had been met with enthusiastic applause. Nathan, the elusive CEO, had even offered a rare smile, a flicker of genuine admiration in his eyes that had sent a shiver of something more than professional satisfaction down her spine. Now, that fragile hope crumbled under the weight of Mr. Wang's predatory gaze. He leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers, a smug smile playing on his lips. "Yun," he began, his voice smooth as silk, yet laced with venom. "A remarkable presentation, innovative, daring. Almost too good to be true." Her stomach clenched. She knew where this was going. The whispers, the sideways glances, the veiled accusations of her being Nathan's pet project had intensified after the meeting. Mr. Wang, Nathan's second-in-command and a man whose ambition was as transparent as his expensive suits, had never hidden his resentment of her sudden rise. "Mr. Wang, I assure you, all the research and data are meticulously documented. I'm happy to walk you through the specifics. He cut her off with a dismissive wave of his hand. Let's skip the pleasantries, shall we? The truth is, Yun, your little performance was unfortunate. You've made certain people uncomfortable. Your close relationship with Mr. Cho, for instance, it's created unnecessary speculation. The blood drained from her face. My relationship with Mr. Cho is purely professional. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. The few stolen moments, the shared laughter in the elevator, the lingering gaze across the boardroom table. They had been so innocent, so fleeting, yet in this sterile, accusatory environment, they felt tainted, distorted. Perception, my dear, is everything in this business. And the perception is that you've used your charms to advance your career. This leaked document, he slid a folder across the desk, clearly demonstrates your plagiarism from a competitor's proposal. A serious breach of company policy. Wouldn't you agree? Yun's breath hitched. She snatched the folder, her eyes scanning the highlighted sections. It was a blatant fabrication, a twisted imitation of her work, designed to discredit her. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. This was a carefully orchestrated trap. This is absurd. I've never seen this document before. This is a setup. Mr. Wong chuckled, a low, menacing sound. Denial is a predictable response, Yun. But unfortunately, the evidence is quite damning. This could be very damaging, not only to your career, but to Mr. Ko's reputation as well. Imagine the scandal. He paused, letting the threat hang heavy in the air. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. However, there is a way to avoid this unpleasantness. Resign. Quietly. Disappear, and this unfortunate incident will be forgotten. The silence stretched, taut with tension. Yun stared at him, her mind racing. Resign. Abandon everything she had worked so hard for. Become another casualty of corporate machinations. The image of her family, her younger siblings relying on her income, flashed before her eyes. Then, a flicker of defiance sparked within her. She had fought too hard, climbed too high, to be brought down by this manipulative snake. Mr. Wong, she began, her voice surprisingly steady. I understand you're trying to protect the company's image, and I appreciate your concern. However, I refuse to be a scapegoat for your insecurities. She met his gaze unflinchingly. I'll be conducting my own investigation into this matter, and I suggest you do the same, because I'm certain that if we dig deep enough, we'll find the real source of this leak, and I suspect it won't be pointing at me. She stood tall, the fear receding, replaced by a surge of righteous anger. She picked up the falsified document, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. I'll keep you informed of my progress, Mr. Wong, and I trust you'll do the same. With a final, unwavering look, she turned and walked towards the door, leaving the scent of lilac and the stunned silence of a predator thwarted hanging heavy in the air. The city lights glittered through the panoramic window, no longer a symbol of confinement, but a promise of the battles yet to come. And for the first time, Yun felt a strange sense of anticipation, a thrill of the hunt. She had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. The game, she realized, had just begun. The air in Isabella's tiny apartment crackled with nervous energy. Empty instant ramen containers littered the coffee table, testaments to sleepless nights fueled by determination. The glow of her laptop illuminated her face, highlighting the dark circles under her eyes, but her expression was resolute. Gone was the timid, hesitant Isabella. This was Isabella the warrior, armed with data and driven by a righteous fury. She scrolled through the files she'd painstakingly compiled, each click of the mouse a step closer to exposing Mr. Wong and the corporate mole who'd nearly destroyed Nathan's company and almost crushed Isabella underfoot in the process. The betrayal still stung, a raw wound that pulsed with the memory of humiliation. Olivia, Nathan's seemingly supportive colleague, the woman Isabella had naively confided in, had been the mole all along. The realization had initially shattered Isabella, but it had also ignited a fire within her. Her initial encounter with Nathan, the aloof yet captivating CEO, had felt like a fairy tale, a fleeting glimpse into a world beyond her mundane existence of juggling multiple part-time jobs to support her family. She'd been delivering food, a side hustle to pay her ailing grandmother's medical bills, when she stumbled into his opulent world, her cheap, practical shoes squeaking on the polished marble floors of his corporate headquarters. He'd been brusque, dismissive even, but there had been a flicker of something in his eyes, a spark of curiosity that had lingered in her memory. Their paths had crossed again unexpectedly, and a fragile connection had begun to form. He saw beyond her worn clothes and tired eyes, recognizing her sharp mind and unwavering work ethic. He'd offered her a position in his company, a chance to escape the drudgery of her life. It had felt like a dream come true, a golden ticket to a brighter future. But Olivia's insidious machinations had quickly turned that dream into a nightmare. Now, Isabella held the key to redemption, both hers and Nathan's. She had meticulously pieced together the puzzle, tracing the flow of leaked information back to Olivia and uncovering Mr. Wang's illicit dealings. It was a risky move, going up against powerful figures like them, but the thought of their smug faces, their belief that they could get away with it, spurred her on. Dawn painted the sky in hues of grey and pink as Isabella finally leaned back, the evidence neatly organized and ready to be presented. A wave of exhaustion washed over her, but the satisfaction of a job well done was a potent antidote. She closed her eyes, picturing Nathan's face, the way his brow furrowed in concentration, the rare but genuine smile that warmed his eyes. The thought of seeing him again, of clearing her name and proving her worth, fueled her resolve. The boardroom was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Nathan sat at the head of the mahogany table, his face impassive, his eyes scanning the faces of the assembled executives. Mr. Wang, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by a mask of forced composure, sat beside Olivia, who radiated an air of cool confidence. Isabella stood beside Nathan, her heart pounding against her ribs. "I have evidence," she began, her voice surprisingly steady, "that proves Mr. Wang has been systematically siphoning company funds into offshore accounts." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Mr. Wang's face paled, but he managed a weak chuckle. "Preposterous. This is slander. I demand proof." Isabella met his gaze unflinchingly. "The proof is here," she said, placing a thick file on the table. Detailed transaction records, email correspondence, and corroborated testimonies. She turned to Olivia. "And I also have evidence that implicates Ms. Olivia Carter as Mr. Wang's accomplice, the source of the leaked information that has cost this company millions." Olivia's composed facade crumbled. Her eyes darted nervously between Mr. Wang and Nathan, her face draining of color. "That's a lie," she stammered. "She's trying to frame me." Isabella calmly produced another set of documents, printouts of encrypted messages between Olivia and Mr. Wang, detailing their scheme. The room fell silent. The evidence was irrefutable. Nathan's gaze, sharp and unwavering, fixed on Olivia. The disappointment in his eyes was palpable. He turned to Mr. Wang, his voice low and dangerous. "You're fired, both of you." The security guards escorted the disgraced executives out of the boardroom, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. Nathan turned to Isabella, his eyes searching hers. "You did it," he said, a hint of awe in his voice. "You saved the company." Isabella managed a small smile, relief washing over her in a tidal wave. "I just did what was right." He stepped closer, his gaze softening. "I underestimated you. he admitted, a faint blush creeping up his neck. I never should have doubted you. He reached out, his fingers brushing against hers. A spark ignited between them, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken feelings that had been simmering beneath the surface. In that moment, amidst the wreckage of betrayal and deceit, something beautiful and unexpected bloomed. The boardroom, once a battleground of corporate intrigue, now felt charged with a different kind of energy, an energy that spoke of trust, respect, and something more. Isabella looked into Nathan's eyes, and in their depths, she saw not just admiration, but something deeper, something that mirrored the hope that was slowly rekindling in her own heart. The fairy tale, it seemed, wasn't over after all. It was just beginning. The panoramic windows of the Shemmission Corporation headquarters offered a breathtaking view of the city sprawling beneath them, a concrete and glass jungle glittering under the late afternoon sun. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with a different kind of energy. The air, usually thick with the hushed murmurs of hushed negotiations and the clatter of keyboards, vibrated with an unusual excitement. Yan, dressed in a crisp, navy blue suit that finally felt like it belonged, stood at the head of the conference table, her heart pounding a rhythm against her ribs that echoed the city's pulse. As you all know, she began, a voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in her hands. The last few months have been challenging. A ripple of knowing murmurs went through the assembled executives. The fallout from the corporate espionage, the near collapse of a major deal. It had been a trial by fire for everyone. But Yun continued, lifting her chin, her gaze sweeping across the faces before her. It has also been a period of immense growth. We've learned from our mistakes, identified our weaknesses, and emerged stronger. She paused, letting her words sink in. This room, just weeks ago, had been the site of her greatest humiliation, where she'd been publicly accused of incompetence, her reputation shredded by the lies of a jealous rival. Now, she stood here, vindicated, not just cleared of wrongdoing but recognized for the very skills they had tried to diminish. And so, she announced, her voice ringing with a newfound authority, "It is with great pleasure that I announce the appointment of Yun as Shemmission Corporation's newest project manager." A wave of applause erupted, genuine and enthusiastic. Smiles, some hesitant, some relieved, and some truly celebratory, bloomed around the table. Yun felt a warmth spread through her chest, chasing away the lingering chill of past anxieties. It wasn't just the promotion, though that was undeniably significant. It was the acknowledgement, the respect, the sense of belonging she had craved for so long. Later that evening, as the celebratory dinner wound down, Yen found herself on the rooftop terrace with Nathan, the elusive CEO who had, in so many ways, become the unexpected catalyst to this transformation. The city lights twinkled below, mirroring the stars scattered across the inky canvas of the night sky. A gentle breeze ruffled Yun's hair, carrying with it the scent of jasmine from the carefully tended rooftop garden. "Congratulations, Yun," Nathan said, his voice soft against the backdrop of the city's hum. He raised his glass in a silent toast, his eyes, usually guarded and unreadable, holding a warmth that sent a shiver down her spine. "Thank you," Yun replied, her voice a little breathless. She took a sip of her champagne, the bubbles tickling her throat. The silence that settled between them wasn't awkward, but charged with an unspoken tension, a simmering energy that had been building since their first accidental encounter. "You know," Nathan said, breaking the silence, "when we first met, I never would have imagined," he trailed off, a faint smile playing on his lips. Yun remembered that day vividly. She had been struggling with a mountain of grocery bags, a life a chaotic jumble of family obligations and dead-end jobs. He had been Nathan Shenishin, CEO extraordinaire, a figure seemingly from another world. Their path crossing had seemed like a cosmic joke, a fleeting moment of absurdity in her otherwise ordinary existence. "I know," she replied, meeting his gaze. "Me neither. But sometimes," Nathan continued, stepping closer, the space between them shrinking to almost nothing. "The most unexpected encounters lead to the most extraordinary outcomes." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Yun's heart pounded against her ribs, a drumbeat of anticipation. The city lights blurred, the stars seemed to shimmer brighter, and the world narrowed down to the space between her and Nathan. The silent promise in his eyes. "Yun," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his features. It was a side of him she had rarely seen, a glimpse behind the carefully constructed facade of the powerful CEO. It made him seem more real, more accessible, and infinitely more desirable. "I know this might seem sudden," he continued, taking her hand in his touch sending a jolt of electricity through her veins. "But I can't deny what I feel anymore." Yun's breath caught in her throat. She had hoped, dreamed even, of this moment. But hearing the words spoken aloud, feeling the warmth of his hand in hers, it felt surreal, almost too good to be true. "Nathan," she began, but he cut her off gently. "Let me finish," he said, his eyes searching hers. "I know you've been through a lot, and I admire your strength, your resilience, your unwavering spirit. You've brought a light into my life that I didn't even know was missing." He paused, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. "Yun, will you?" He didn't need to finish the sentence. Yun knew what he was asking. The answer, clear and unwavering, rose from the depths of her heart. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Nathan, 1,000 times yes." A slow smile spread across Nathan's face, transforming his features, illuminating them from within. He leaned in, his breath warm against her cheek. And then, under the vast expanse of the night sky, with the city lights twinkling like a million tiny diamonds below, he kissed her. It was a kiss that spoke of unspoken desires, of shared struggles and triumphs, of a future brimming with possibilities. It was a kiss that sealed their fate, a promise of a love story that had begun in the most unexpected of ways, a testament to the transformative power of second chances, and the enduring magic of finding your happily ever after. The penthouse apartment shimmered, a panorama of city lights twinkling below. From the 20-foot windows, the world looked like a scattered handful of jewels. Inside, the atmosphere was equally dazzling, if more intimate. Soft jazz drifted from unseen speakers, mingling with the aroma of lilac and the gentle clinking of ice in crystal glasses. Yun, dressed in a simple yet elegant cream dress, stood beside Nathan, her hand resting lightly in his. The awkwardness of their initial encounters had melted away, replaced by comfortable familiarity that surprised and delighted them both. "It's breathtaking," Yun murmured, her gaze sweeping across the cityscape. Just a few weeks ago, she'd been struggling to make ends meet, juggling multiple jobs to support her family. Now, she stood here, poised and confident, a world away from the cramped apartment and the constant worrying that had shadowed her life. Nathan smiled, his eyes warm on her face. "Not as breathtaking as you." Yun blushed, a genuine, unguarded blush that warmed Nathan's chest more than any expensive champagne ever could. He'd seen her strength and vulnerability, her sharp intelligence masked by a quiet humility. He'd watched her navigate the treacherous currents of corporate intrigue, emerging victorious, not through ruthlessness, but through integrity. It was a quality he'd almost forgotten existed in the cutthroat world he inhabited. "Shen, Yun began, using his Chinese name, a gesture of intimacy that sent a thrill through him. I still can't believe her voice trailed off. The memory of the recent turmoil still vivid. The betrayal by her supposed friend, Jessica, the mole within his company. The relentless pressure it had all seemed insurmountable. Yet, it was through that crucible that they had found each other. Yun's keen eye for detail, honed by years of managing complex schedules and family finances, had inadvertently uncovered the leak of confidential information. Her courage in speaking up, despite the potential repercussions, had not only saved Shenmishan's company, and had also exposed Jessica's duplicity. Believe it, Nathan said softly, squeezing her hand. You were incredible, Yun. You saw what everyone else missed. You trusted your instincts. He paused, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. And you trusted me, even when I doubted myself. The memory of his initial suspicion, fueled by Jessica's lies, still stung. He'd almost let Yun slip through his fingers, blinded by preconceived notions and the machinations of someone he'd thought he knew. Yun turned to face him, her eyes shining with sincerity. I always knew there was more to you, Shenmishan. Beneath the CEO facade there's a good man. He chuckled, a genuine, heartfelt sound that echoed the lightness in his chest. And beneath the struggling artist facade he paused, a playful glint in his eyes. There's a woman who can run a Fortune 500 company. Yun laughed, to sound like wind chimes in the opulent apartment. The tension of the past weeks finally released, leaving behind a quiet joy that settled between them like a warm blanket. So, Nathan began, drawing her closer, about that offer to head the new design division. Yun's eyes widened. I don't know, Shenmishan. It's a big responsibility. You're more than capable, he assured her, his voice laced with admiration. You have the talent, the vision, and the integrity. And, he added, his voice dropping to a whisper, you have me. Yun's heart fluttered. She had found not only professional recognition, but something far more precious. A partner who saw and valued her for who she truly was. I'll think about it, she said, a shy smile playing on her lips. He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. Take all the time you need. But in the meantime he trailed off, his gaze meeting hers. The city lights shimmered in the reflection of her eyes, a backdrop to the unspoken promise that hung in the air. He gently cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs caressing her cheekbones. Yun, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Before he could finish, a soft chime interrupted them. Nathan glanced at the doorway, a flicker of annoyance crossing his features. His personal assistant stood there, holding a silver tray. Sir, Mr. Lee is here for the meeting, Nathan sighed. The spell broken. He turned back to Yun, a rueful smile on his face. Duty calls. Yun nodded, understanding. The world of corporate responsibilities, even amidst a penthouse splendor, still beckoned. But tonight, something had shifted. The weight of expectation, a fear of the unknown, had been replaced by newfound confidence, a shared understanding, and the promise of something more. As Nathan turned to greet Mr. Lee, Yun walked towards the panoramic window, the city lights twinkling below. She took a deep breath, the cool night air filling her lungs. The future stretched before her, full of possibilities, and for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to embrace them. She knew, with a certainty that warmed her from the inside out, that whatever challenges lay ahead, she wouldn't face them alone. She had Shenmishan, and that, she realized, was more valuable than any corporate empire. She glanced back at him, a soft smile gracing her lips. He caught her eye and winked, her silent reassurance that echoed the unspoken words hanging in the air. The meeting could wait. Their story was just beginning.